Present.
Councilmember Barber,
Present.
Councilmember Burke,
Present.
Councilmember Ingert, absent. Councilmember Forster,
Present.
Councilmember Holman,
Present.
Councilmember Townsend,
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We have a quorum. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all, and again, good evening. We will move on from presentations and awards. We do have a personal appearance tonight. We have Mr. Matt Partridge with us this evening with Dana F. Cole & Company. Provide us with the FY 2023 financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm Matt Partridge. I'm the CPA, works for the firm Dana F. Cole. I'm filling in for Kim Pearson.
Matt, could you move the mic up to you? Sorry.
Filling in for Kim Pearson, who some of you might remember from years past. He's the engagement partner on this audit. He and I, along with a couple of staff, concluded field work here in the city during December and January, and we've issued our final report. Very similar to last year. Big picture, we have issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the best opinion we can give, meaning that they are fairly presented in all material respects. And our report on compliance with laws, regulations, and grant agreements do not disclose any items of non-compliance. The only difference in terms of scope from this year's audit compared to last year was there was no single audit component, as there were no expenditures from federal awards this year that exceeded the threshold of $750,000. I would like to take the time to thank Lisa Williams and her staff for their help during the audit. If I can just point out one person, and they are all so helpful and kind. It's always a treat coming here. But Rachel Williams in particular, so responsive to emails and inquiries, and it made the process very smooth on our end. So I really appreciate their efforts. And finally, for the 13th year in a row, I'm happy to report that after the review process by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, the city was presented with a certificate of achievement for financial reporting, and this is included in this year's audit package as well. So kudos to all involved. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Sure. I don't know that everybody had an opportunity to go through the report, but given the glowing remarks, I'm sure there's no need to go through it this evening, but if anyone has any specific questions they'd like to ask Mr. Partridge. If not, thank you, sir. Appreciate your report.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
And now we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, for the month of January, in your packet is a copy of the department report. We did start off January with only 2 single-family permits, but we had several that were dropped off here on the first of this month, so I expect things to pick up. They are picking up here for the month of February, but 2 single-family permits and 1 commercial permit that were issued during the month of January. A couple things I'd like to bring your attention to with regards to construction activity. We did issue the last certificate of occupancy for the Newly Distribution Center at 1300 South Dean. So that project, for the most part right now, is completed with their first phase. They are underway on a second phase, which is the remaining 400,000 square feet of that building. So they're basically replicating the work that they did in the first phase with the remaining square footage of that building. But for phase 1 of their project, they are totally complete with that project as of the month of January. The council's likely aware there is a ribbon cutting for that facility here on the 20th at 1:00 p.m. So we will have a very large crowd with representatives from the state, the governor's office, KCADC, and other local partners here that were a part of that project. So we look forward to a busy afternoon with Newly and a bunch of their community partners. We also issued a certificate of occupancy for Abelardo's at 2023 West Foxwood Drive, which is the former Schlotzky's. So they opened during the month of January and have been quite busy. So it's good to see the traffic coming in and out of that shopping center with that new business. And then after the freezing weather that we had during December, the site work commenced again with the HTO project. So they made a lot of progress with their vertical construction and some additional site work on that once they kind of dried their site out and let it thaw out for a few days. That will conclude my staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gress, real quick, just to confirm, the ribbon cutting is the 20th. I thought there was also another one that same day. Is there one on that day as well? Or
There's an open house.
Open house,
Yeah, they're
that's
having
what
an
it is.
open house at 11 a.m.
Okay,
It's
that's,
kind of a grand opening for their new facility.
Okay.
Folks that are moving from over near Lake Winnebago to warehouse number 2.
want to deconflict
Harmer,
schedules.
is that
Harmar, that is correct.
Harmar?
Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
In regards to the ceremony at Newly, are there going to be any representatives from MoDOT there?
I do not believe there will be. They really didn't have any involvement in that project with the exception of the signal, but the city was already underway on that project at Dina North Cass. The only representatives from the state would be representatives from the governor's office with that project.
Can we make sure they drive down I-49 and 58 at about, say, 4:30 or so?
We might have some signage out for a detour for them. that
Thank
day.
you, sir.
Anyone else have any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Gress. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Gress. I would ask Chief Wilson to make a report, his annual report from the police department.
So this evening, I'll be reporting on our year-end activity for 2023. NIBRS scored crime overview. This is really going to be an overview. Under the Group A, which used to be the UCR Part 1 crimes, we took in 676 scoreable offenses. Of those, 233 were cleared, which kept us about 34% clearance rate overall. No homicides, knock on wood, thankfully. We did investigate an elderly abuse case that turned into an involuntary manslaughter case. We had an overall of 612 arrests, which is about 13 more arrests than what we had last year. Investigations took in 424 cases and cleared 167. With an overall clearance rate of 39%, the federal government does not put out their numbers in a timely fashion, so I am basing my numbers on 2022. Right now, what I can find is the national clearance rate for 2022 is about 37%. I suspect it's going to be about the same once they put out the numbers for 23. Felony to domestic assaults, they increased by 350%. That's an awful lot. We went from 2 to 9. Those are those cases that are with serious physical injury. Side note, I always put in a little side note about we have 65 cases at the Cass County Prosecutor's Office waiting for filing decisions. So obviously if some of those would get filed, those numbers might change just a little bit. I apologize for my voice. I'm trying to get through this. Total CAT events were up by 5,000, about 5,200 almost. The total CAT events, that's for the 2 police departments and the 2 fire departments. Raymore PD events totaled, they went up about 20%. We went from 23,000 to almost 28,000. Raymore total reports, we had 2,400 this last year, and the year before we had 2,200 telephone calls. Telephone calls went up quite a bit. Non-emergency number, we went up about 206 from 23. Total emergency calls went up 753. So a total of 10,146 just emergency calls. Not emergency calls were about 39,000. And that is the quick overview. If any of you have questions, I'd be happy to answer. And if any of you would like to dive a little bit deeper, please feel free to reach out to me and I can do that.
Chief, I noticed that Raymore warrants dropped significantly from 22 to 23. Was that, were they just cleaning out the files last year that caused that reduction?
I think that would probably, the court would have to answer to that, but I believe that's the case. And they were also transitioning from INCO to show me courts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, do
I think
remember
that probably has some sort of effect on it as well.
Okay.
But I have 2 other items if there's no questions regarding the staff.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
I don't know if any of you have seen, we do have 4 of the traffic solution radar signs at various locations throughout the city. I've already been, there was a photo taken of me of tampering with one of them. My troops pointed that out and sent out the photo, so. We are also taking Citizens Police Academy applications. We're going to start the academy March 12th. All the apps need to be in by March 5th, so if you know of anyone, please share that information with them. They can find the application online at the PD's website.
Okay.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions of the Chief? Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Chief, I would also like to recognize that I did catch that coming off of Dean, that going south, that first turn there. I caught that initial sign there with the new speed limit sign, so appreciate it. You definitely I saw a few brake lights, including myself, making sure I was at that speed limit. So again, good job.
So with those 4 in our trailer, that gives us the ability to move 5 around the city. And I will collect some information here probably in a couple months and report on what the speeds are in some of those areas.
I was going to say, we did invest a little bit more in those and got the data collection portion of that. I know some of them are just there for education purposes, but this one actually provides us with some data.
Yeah, that software, the council approved the software with that, and it's going to be for 1 year.
Okay. All right, excellent. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Chief. Would like to remind the council that you have generously agreed to meet on President's Day for a work session, which will be the kickoff of our use tax campaign, and then we will be going into executive session after that for personnel reasons.
Okay.
That includes staff reports tonight, sir.
Any questions of Mr. Fearborn before we move on?
At the conclusion of staff reports, if I could have a moment of the council's time.
All right.
Thank you. I wanted to dovetail off of the report tonight from the auditors and the significance of the 13th year of receiving the GFOA award. This one is a little bit different than the budget award. The budget award we get and have gotten since 2004 regarding the detail level within our budget, the level of transparency within our budget, the accuracy of our budget, and the story that gets told with the budget. They look at a lot of different things with this one. This one, the award that we received for our audit is about, and a reminder, a true audit when it is done, the audit is actually done internally. The auditors are here to review our report that we are giving you to make sure that it is accurate, that it is complete, and it's fair. We are down to one item in the audit that the auditors actually do for us. All the rest of this document is put together internally, and giving the award speaks to how well we are taking care of the city's money, how well our finance department is doing in looking at those dollars, in making sure that they are spent correctly, that they are spent according to what the citizens expect of us in spending those dollars. And so I really do want to reach out once again and congratulate our finance Williamses, Rachel and Elisa, on an incredible job that they do. This is one report. This report doesn't come to you this way unless they're doing it right every single day for our citizens. So I just wanted to dovetail off of that, and thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Fearborn? You know, the other significance to this being our 13th year is since 13 was such a significant number at the Super Bowl yesterday, I feel confident that we're going to be victorious in Jefferson City as well. So thank you for that omen. So we'll move on to the consent agenda at this time. We have several items. I believe we have 7 items on the consent agenda this evening. But I would entertain a motion to approve all or portions of that consent agenda as you feel comfortable with.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Odelgawad.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, including item A, City Council meeting minutes for January 22nd, 2024. Item B, approval of the Safety Traffic Enforcement Program. Item C, Salt Dome Pad Replacement Project, acceptance and final payment. Item D, 2022 Street Preservation Project, acceptance and final payment. Item E, 2023 Street Preservation Project, acceptance and final payment. Item F, appointment of Lauren Shanks to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And item G, appointment of Gary Graves to the Arts Commission.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the 7 items on this consent agenda this evening. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3873 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3873 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract proposal with Black & McDonald for the Heritage Hills streetlight installation in the amount of $157,361.03, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Belgawad.
I move that we approve Bill 3873, award of contract for Heritage Hills streetlight installation.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
None. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3875 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3875 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, annexing property described as Creekside Ranch, located in the southwest and southeast quarter of Section 2, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Cass County, Missouri, and belonging to the Lisa DeLibero Trust pursuant to Section 71.014 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, the next 3 items on the agenda tonight are all kind of wrapped into one application. So before I get started, I'm going to actually invite the applicant forward for their presentation to the council to follow up with any questions, and then I'll dig into the staff report this evening. I'm going to take control of your computers for a few brief moments as the applicant walks through their presentation. So let me know if you can see the presentation up on your screen. Perfect.
Okay. Great.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. Evening, Matt Slish, Engineering Solutions, 50 Southeast 30th Street, Lee Summit, Missouri. We're here this evening to talk, as David said, about the next 3 projects. So it's the annexation, the rezoning, and the preliminary plat for a new residential development in kind of the northern part of Raymore. So Kurzweil and Gore, there's essentially 90 acres that sets up on the northeast corner that we're proposing 23 3-acre lots. The only caveat to that is one of them will actually be 10 acres. The developer would like to have one for himself. So there will be 22 3-acre lots available, with the third, the larger one being his. Go ahead and go to the next sheet. So as you see, the plan is to come off of Gore. We took some time to kind of work our way through a layout that would make sense with acreage type lots, to still provide some opportunity to feel rural in nature, but provide some of the amenities of the city. And so we're here because we went through the water districts, we've gone through all the other processes to try to figure out where was the best resulting opportunity for the development and for the future residents. We found that the Raymore provides an opportunity to have city water. We can upgrade our streets and provide city streets, and provide a nice opportunity in that end of town that is similar to the area and the development kind of occurring in that portions of town. So as you start to see, it's a mixture of lot types and styles generally. They're all 3 acres, again, with exception of the larger tract to the east. The idea is there'll be restrictions on every one of them. They'll restrict to 1.5 story or 2-story type homes, expecting the home values to be $700,000, $800,000 and higher. Expectations would be is that we're going to have paved driveways. You'd have some outbuildings. You'd have the opportunity to have a rural setting, but still be close enough to the city, both south and north, with access across the area that provides a great opportunity for that area to develop. You want to go to the next one? So as we kind of looked at this site when the developer purchased the acreage, he kind of recognized that as you go to the east, there's some county acreage lots. To the south, there's continued development of residential. To the west, and again then to the north. To the north begins to be that problem we talked about of water. It's kind of that area of no man's land where there's a transmission main for Kansas City, but nobody can tie to. Water District 3 doesn't have a lot of opportunity to provide it. And so this continuation of our water system that'll loop Raymore water into it maybe continues the development and opportunities up that way is kind of our understanding or hope. But as you kind of see, the blue areas are highlighted up in that area of town that start to illustrate some of the acreage lots that already exist in that area. So as we went through and tried to identify what size these lots wanted to be, whether it be 3 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres, it seemed reasonable in this area of town that 3-acre lots provide the most opportunity and flexibility for what people are looking for. A lot of people leave smaller residential lots thinking they want more land, but then all of a sudden realize that's a lot more grass to mow. So as we found, 3 acres seems to be the right fit and have had a lot of interest in the development. The next few slides will start to show some architectural styles, ideas, and looks aesthetically of what we're looking for. I think it'll be a large mixture. It'll be a lot of people that'll come in with their own custom homes and be able to develop a wide array of homes and styles out there that won't be the consistent look that you might see in a subdivision where it's the same style or same house. And so it provides an opportunity to develop what someone may want out there and keep on rolling. And so I think with that, we're here with any questions. So with me is Jake Lovelace. He's a representative of the developer as well. So if we did anything on any of our part, we were happy to help.
Matt, I don't know if it came up in planning and zoning, but was there a green space dedication along with if this were to be annexed and be part of a development within Raymore that was either waived on for a monetary?
You talking about parkland?
Yes.
Yes, so parkland, we're going to do a monetary fee in lieu of.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
It is, at that point, I think David can speak better to the park board meeting, but the idea was that's kind of the outer stretch of where park land wasn't going to be beneficial to them, and the fees
Correct.
or the funds will help.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask that at planning and zoning, but I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah, does anybody else have any questions of Matt? Okay, we'll move on to Mr. Gress then.
Give me one moment, and I'll give you control of your computers again. You have your screens back up in front of you now? Perfect. So as the applicant mentioned, the first application this evening is actually the voluntary annexation to bring this property into the city limits. The applicant, since they are requesting the abbreviated method that is included in section 71.014 of the statutes of Missouri, there is no requirement for a public hearing, which shortens the process for them since it is a voluntary request. The map that the council had in front of them showed a large, generally 110-acre tract of land that was originally purchased by the developer. They have surveyed that off to include 89.67 acres, which they are requesting to bring into the city. That includes the 22 3-acre lots and the 1 10-acre lot that the applicant mentioned. There is a larger portion of that is actually being left in the county that serves as a buffer between this proposed development and then the Meadowbrook acres, which is in the county to the east. Relevant to the annexation request, on March 11th of 2019, the council did approve resolution 19-15, which changed and adopted the city's current intent to annex area, which I've included in the council's packet. We worked with an annexation consultant to evaluate that overall area, looking at kind of 4 different areas of that overall boundary. And so this property does fall within that overall intent to annex boundary, and that analysis did include some references to the lack of sewer facilities and other infrastructure that was kind of lacking in the area, which leads to the zoning request that we'll get into here briefly. There is, within the packet, has been included an annexation agreement which outlines the extent to which services are currently offered within this area, and then the extent to which the city will provide services in the future with regards to primarily water service and snow plowing. As I mentioned, they are the RE designation that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes does allow for the use of on-site waste disposal systems. There are restrictions on the types of facilities that can be used within that, and that would be covered under their MOU, which is part of their separate application. But overall, the growth management plan does identify this area as appropriate for low-density residential development, and staff did include in the packet their findings of fact for the case and does recommend that the council approve this request, subject to the condition that if it is approved, staff will file the required ordinances and records with the Cass County Recorder of Deeds. That would conclude my staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Any questions of Mr. Gress? Anything else, Mr. Fearborn?
No, sir.
All right, there's no further discussion and no further questions. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3875, the Creekside Ranch annexation.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3875. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Now move on to item B. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3876 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3876 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from A Agricultural District to RE Rural Estate District, an 89.67 acre tract of land located in the southwest and southeast quarter of Section 2, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. There is a public hearing that's required on this particular topic, so I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, this would be the second of 3 applications as part of this overall development, which is to rezone the property from its current A agricultural zoning classification to an RE rural estate designation. This action is required in order to bring it into compliance with the city's future land use map, which does fall under the umbrella of the RE rural estate zoning designation. There are included within your packet a couple site photographs of the surrounding property or the area surrounding this property, and because it does require a public hearing, we did advertise this meeting in the January 24th edition of the North Cass Herald, as well as a Good Neighbor meeting that was held on January 11th of 2024. Items of record include the mailed notices to adjoining property owners, the notice of publication in the newspaper, the Unified Development Code, the application, the growth management plan, and the staff report overall. As I mentioned, City Code does require a Good Neighbor meeting be posted and held as a result of the request this evening. So we did have that on January 11th of this year. We had a total of 9 people in attendance, residents that kind of surrounded this property, in addition to city staff and the applicant. I have included a list of basically the questions and responses that were given to that as part of that application, and happy to answer any questions that the council might have with respect to that meeting. There are, as of today, the signs are still posted on the property for the public hearing. Staff has received at this point 4 phone calls with regards to the signs. 3 of those residents did attend the Good Neighbor meeting. All of those calls really just had to do with what is the sign and what are they proposing to do. So staff did not receive any objections or complaints about the request here this evening. As I mentioned, the applicant is requesting that the property be served by City of Raymore Water. We did work with the applicant and have obtained in writing that this area, as they mentioned, is kind of in no man's land. We require it as part of the application to have it in writing that it is not in any of the adjacent water districts. And so we did get that in between the planning and zoning meeting and tonight. And so I wanted to make clarification on that. And as I mentioned, the RE zoning designation is one of the only ones, in addition to the agricultural zoning district, that allows for the use of on-site waste disposal. That is not allowed in any other zoning district, and so there are provisions for the use of those facilities within this subdivision moving forward. The Planning Commission at their January 16th meeting did vote to accept the staff proposed findings of facts and forward this case to the City Council with a recommendation of approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this application.
Thank you, David. Any questions of Mr. Gress? Okay. As this is a public hearing, I would open it for anyone from the public would care to comment on this particular item. Please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdel-Gawad.
I move that we approve Bill 3876, the Creekside Ranch rezoning from A agricultural to RE rural estate.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3876. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 2408 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 24-08 by title only, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving the preliminary plat for the Creekside subdivision located in the southwest and southeast quarter of Section 2, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This item also requires a public hearing, so I'll open a public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this item.
It's my last one, I promise.
Okay.
This would be the last of the 3 applications for this overall request, and located in the exact same area, does require a public hearing, and so we did advertise this meeting in the January 24th edition of the North Cass Herald, in addition to items exhibits 1 through 6 listed in the staff report this evening. This action, if approved by the council, does set out what the expectations are for the development of the subdivision in terms of the number of lots, the overall layout of the streets, and so forth. I did include the same notes from the Good Neighbor meeting. The questions remain the same from the rezoning request, but I included it for informational purposes in here. The preliminary plat, since it does deal with the layout of the subdivision, we did work with South Metro Fire to review the application. No objections or concerns were really shared since there were 2 points of access in and out of the subdivision. The one thing additional I wanted to mention, since Gore Road is designated as a major collector road, it abuts this subdivision, so therefore there will be a buffer that is required along the extent of Gore Road that will be built out. A landscape plan is going to be required as part of a final plat application, which is the next step in their process to come forward. But staff will look for that landscape plan, which will then be implemented kind of house by house as they're built out in the subdivision along Gore Road. Staff does recommend approval of this request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission also at their January 16th meeting voted in favor of the request. I will say that the recommendation for this is coming with the condition that the previous 2 items are approved by the City Council in order for it to be annexed and zoned appropriately. So those are the only condition relative to this request. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. Holman?
I may have missed it, sir, but is there a proposed, or will there be a proposed HOA or POA that goes with this property?
At this point, they have not proposed that. I think they mentioned that as part of the restrictions they may have as part of the project, but staff typically would require that as part of a final plat application moving forward. You did jog my memory, I'm sorry, with respect to the parkland dedication question that you asked, Mr. Mayor. In December, we did meet with the park board on this request, and due to its location, they did vote that the fee in lieu would be the more appropriate mechanism to satisfy that. So it's $11,858 is what they will pay at the next final plat application in lieu of any actual parkland.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anything? Okay, thank you, sir. As there is a public hearing open at this time, I'd invite anyone from the public to wish to comment on this issue. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Delgawad.
I move that we approve Resolution 24-08, Creekside Ranch preliminary plat.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 24-08. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3877 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3877 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $3,600,000 principal amount of special obligation bonds, Series 2024 of the City of Raymore, Missouri, and authorizing certain other documents and actions by the city.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Ms. Williams to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Before you this evening for your consideration is Bill number 3877 that includes the parameters for a special obligation bond issue. The Special Obligation Bond Series 2024 issue will be used to reconstruct the city's existing trails and recreation park and memorial park. The debt service will be funded from parks and stormwater sales tax, as well as the capital improvement sales tax over a period of 15 years. The issue will be bank qualified. Bank qualification is available to all issuers who intend to issue $10 million or less of tax-exempt securities in any one calendar year. The 2024 special obligation bonds are expected to be sold via an electronic competitive sale method on March 5th, and Piper Sandler and Company will be serving as the city's financial advisor. Gilmore and Bell, our bond counsel, is also here this evening if you have any questions for them.
Any questions of Ms. Williams? As you all know, this was an item in work session that we discussed quite thoroughly with regard to an ability to take care of all the trail systems in Raymore. But Mr. Fearborn, did you have a comment on that?
I would simply add that we had the ratings calls for these two bond issues today. We had 2 ratings calls. That will be followed up by an additional rating call with Moody's on Friday to make some clarifications about the project. Those ratings calls, I feel, both went very, very well. They're a little bit, it's a brutal hour of questioning that goes to something I said earlier as far as they delve into about 3 years worth of history and all of our finances, but I felt like they went very well today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Fearborn or Ms. Williams? All right. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3877, authorizing special obligation bonds, Series 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3877. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Abdelgawad?
Thank you, sir. Just a quick comment. I've been on the council for a little while, and I feel like the whole time we've kind of had some, we've been seeing the park trails deteriorate, which just happens over time naturally. And so I'm just super excited that Jim miraculously figured out a way to get us the money to fix the trails. Yep. I think it's going to be a fabulous project. It's much needed, and will be a great way to fix them that will last for many years.
Yeah, it'll
Thanks,
be an
Jim, for your work on that.
absolutely wonderful amenity to the citizens of Raymore, that's for sure. Anyone else? Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Okay, please have the first reading of Bill 3874 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 3874 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving payment of funds and authorizing the city manager, city clerk, mayor, and city attorney to execute documents and agreements necessary for the acquisition of the right-of-way, the temporary construction and access easements, and the permanent drainage easements for construction and completion of the Ward Road Improvement Project, and authorizing the mayor to declare this as an emergency.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Zur to make the staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fairborn. Mayor, members of the council, I will make my staff report brief because you will have the opportunity to hear the full reading of this during the course. I would also like to begin by apologizing to each of you for the length of the proposed bill that you have before you this evening. We have itemized each of the payments. I would also apologize to staff as well as Mr. Fairborn, and particularly the city clerk who will need to be reading this. That being said, the bill before you this evening provides for final authorization to accept all of the necessary temporary rights-of-way, full rights-of-way, and temporary construction easements, as well as drainage easements for the construction of the Ward Road improvements that will go from 163rd Street to 58 Highway. The course of this has been an arduous process that has included negotiations with individual property owners, the initiation of a eminent domain action, and final resolution will be through payment of the amounts from the report of commissioners to the Circuit Court of Cass County. Those are all itemized, and that would conclude my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Zur. Any questions of Mr. Zur? I will say it's a shame that we're in an official meeting this evening, because I really wanted to make a drinking game out of how many times you said "whereas" in that particular ordinance. But, just having fun.
I would want to conclude the staff report on this by informing the council that we did receive last week the bids for, as you know, we had, because of the length of time, we had to go out and rebid it. The new bid in total came in with base bid, one alternate, and the water line work that the water district is going to have to do is $1,126,008 higher than the original bid package. If you divide that number by 8, it's 140,751. That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Thank you, sir. I don't know if that's good or bad, but hopefully we're moving toward the project. Okay, if there are no further questions, anyone? No further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3874.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Belgawad.
I move that we approve Bill 3874, the Ward Road payment approval.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3874. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Barber, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to make a comment. Obviously, this has been a project on our list that we've promised our citizens for years. It seems like we've been working on it for years. And I just wanted to personally thank Mr. Zur for holding our hands through this complex process. And we finally see light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's something that's very much needed in this city. And I think the citizens are going to be glad when it's finished. So thank you for your hard work.
Amen to that. Mr. Belgawad.
Thank you, sir. I would echo what Councilmember Barber said. This is a project in Ward 4 we've really been looking forward to, especially in Ward 4, but across the city, I think it's going to make traveling in and out of Raymore so much easier. We've, like the trails, watched Ward Road deteriorate for quite some time, and we and the city had hoped to take care of this project much sooner, and I'm just appreciative of the staff and Mr. Zur for helping us get through this process so that we can finally see this project move forward.
Thank you very much. I would agree totally with that. Mr. Zur has several bargaining scars on him at this point. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. As this is an emergency read on Bill 3874, could I please have the second reading of Bill 3874 in its entirety?
The second reading of Bill 3874 in its entirety, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving payment of funds and authorizing the city manager, city clerk, mayor, and city attorney to execute documents and agreements necessary for the acquisition of the right-of-way, the temporary construction and access easements, and the permanent drainage easements for construction and completion of the Ward Road Improvement Project, and authorizing the mayor to declare this as an emergency. Whereas the City of Raymore has commenced with planning and design of certain improvements to Ward Road between Missouri 58 Highway at the south and 163rd Street to the north, to include the addition of curbing, gutters, stormwater control measures, sidewalks, and trails. And whereas the completion of the improvements will require the acquisition of property interests, including right-of-way, temporary construction and access easements, and permanent drainage easements from neighboring property owners along Ward Road. And whereas the owners include the Gail C. Hankins, Intervivos Trust, Hankins Trust, Johnny G. Francescos IV, Linda L. Dickerson, Teresa G. Martin, the Hester Family Trust dated November 23, 2015, Hester Trust, Alan Paul and Shelley J. Pauls, David Edward Shear and Karen J. Shears, Roger G. Bratton and Susan W. Brattons, Jacqueline E. Glenn Revocable Trust under a trust agreement dated December 29, 2022, Glenn Trust, Christopher D. Batliner, Tara Batliner, Richard Batliner, and Deborah Batliners, and whereas the City of Raymore has negotiated for resolution and acquisition of the necessary property interests from the Batliners, the Glenn Trust, the Brattons, the Pauls, and Mr. Francescos, and whereas the City of Raymore has prosecuted a first amended petition for condemnation through the City Court of Cass County, Missouri, identified as case number 22CA-CC00326, seeking acquisition of the remaining property interests from the Hankins Trust, the Shears, Linda L. Dickerson, Teresa G. Martin, and the Hester Trust required for completion of the improvements. And whereas the report of commissioners has been completed and filed with the Circuit Court in case number 22CA-CC00326, identifying the cost for acquisition of the remaining property interests from the Hankins Trust, the Shears, Linda L. Dickerson, Teresa G. Martin, and the Hester Trust. And whereas the Condemnation Commissioners have also submitted to the Circuit Court a statement of Commissioners' fees identifying the expenses and services rendered in case number 22CA-CC00326. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Raymore, Missouri as follows. Section 1, authorization for payments. The City of Raymore authorizes the following payments pursuant to the report of Commissioners entered in case number 22CA-CC00326, the statement of Commissioners' fees and/or as otherwise negotiated between the owners and city staff. A, $18,110.48 for the Commissioners' fees. B, $33,135 for the Hankins Trust. C, $22,297.50 for the Hester Trust, Linda L. Dickerson and Teresa G. Martin. D, $60,986.25 for the Brattons. E, $40,455 for the Pauls. F, $226,185 for the Shears. G, $25,576 for Johnny G. Francescos IV. H, $33,240.28 for the Glenn Trust. I, $23,553 for the Batliners. The foregoing payments are itemized individually on Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated by reference herein. Section 2, authorization for execution of agreements and documents. The city manager, city clerk, mayor, and city attorney are authorized and instructed to execute the agreements, rights of ways acceptances, temporary construction and access easement acceptances, and permanent drainage easements as may be necessary and appropriate to complete the improvements. 3, effective date. The effective date of approval of this ordinance shall be coincidental with the mayor's signature and attestation by the city clerk. Severability. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions thereof. Section 5, emergency reading. The mayor hereby authorizes the passage of this ordinance as an emergency bill. Duly read the first time this 12th day of February 2024. Be it remembered that the above ordinance was approved and adopted this 12th day of February 2024 by the following vote.
Thank you, Michelle. You did very well getting through all that. All right. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad.
I move that we approve the second emergency reading of Bill 3874, the Ward Road payment approval.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3874. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. And now the hard work begins. Although that was pretty hard work before, wasn't it, buddy? All right, let's move on to the last item under new business. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 2414 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 2414 by title only, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, opposing the Cass County Commission's adoption of the senior property tax credit established by Senate Bill 190 and codified in Section 137.1050.2, subsection 1 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. During the 2023 Missouri legislative session, that body passed and the governor signed into law Senate Bill 190, which calls for an eligible senior tax credit on real property that freezes the property assessed valuation at a certain period of time. At its February 5th work session, certain estimated fiscal impacts to the city of Raymore were presented to the council that are associated with that, using a number of assumptions because the law is not written well and leaves a number of assumptions open to interpretation. At the same work session, the City Council did direct staff to prepare a resolution for the City Council consideration tonight that would respectfully request that Cass County Commission refrain from taking any action imposing this legislation. That resolution is now in front of the Council for your consideration. I would add to the report that have had the opportunity to have a couple of conversations in person and over the phone with the presiding commissioner for Cass County, Mr. Houston. He totally gets what the council is doing tonight. And it has opened the opportunity as we move forward. As you know, the problem is the law was so poorly written that it leaves open to interpretation certain areas of it. Cass County's initial pass was just using one of the areas that they have flexibility on, and that is whether or not to go back 1 year with it, or go back to when somebody turned 62 who would be of any age and applying now. There are actually 4 other parameters that Cass County can look at and put certain limits on. This will open up the dialogue between us and Cass County before they actually vote on a final interpretation of that. And Bob is perfectly willing to come to us and get our input and seek those additional. In fact, we provided the numbers to him and to the school district for their use. So we feel like going to here with this resolution will allow us to open up a very good dialogue with the county before they pass any final items, to perhaps put some other additional parameters on what they would finally be voting on. That concludes staff report tonight, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I would add that the school districts have entered into conversations with the county commission as well. At least I know Ray-Pec School District has. I don't know what the results of that are with regard to their recommendations, but I do know that they're concerned about it, given that the large portion of real property tax is a mainstay for the school districts, that's for sure. Anybody else have any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Delgawad.
I move that we approve Resolution 24-14, the Senate Bill 190 resolution.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 24-14. Any further discussion? Mr. Delgawad.
Just a quick comment. Mr. Fearborn kind of mentioned it, but we are going to have a lengthy discussion about this tonight because we talked about it last week at the work session. So anyone who has questions about it, I would just want to encourage them to watch that work session that they can find online.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. That concludes the formal portion of our agenda. We'll now move on to public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to Mayor Council Communications, and I'll start with Mr. Holman this evening.
Just congratulations to staff on the really solid report from the auditor. It becomes status quo. We expect it every year. It's been the standard of the city for in excess of a decade. Same thing with the budget, but that, even though that's the standard, it does not go unnoticed, nor should it. A lot of hard work goes into that, and I appreciate it for one. I know the rest of our citizens do as well. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would concur with my Ward 3 counterpart here, Mr. Holman. The budget and the audit, all that is a testament to our leader, our city manager, Jim Fearborn, and thank you for your leadership. Like I always do, I want to thank the citizen volunteers that we brought into the folds of Raymore. We can't run the city without them.
That's right.
Lauren Shanks and Gary Graves, appreciate that. I know we've got more openings as well, don't we, on Park Board and a few of theirs. So if you can get online and look those up, and if you got any questions, you can certainly ask staff or ask your whatever ward you're in, council person. But yeah, we do need volunteers to run this city. Do appreciate them too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Delgawad.
Thank you, sir. I will echo what we've heard before. Congratulations especially to the finance department, and thanks, Mr. Fearborn, for really shining a light on that. It is a big deal, the work that they do, and just being so transparent and everything in line. brings so much confidence to the city and to us from our citizens, knowing that they can trust us with their funds. Just adding to what the previous council members said, I'm super excited about the ribbon cutting at Newly and the open house at Harmar, seeing those two big businesses coming into the city. That's significant. And additionally, just super excited about two of the projects we voted on the first reading tonight, both the park trails, which I mentioned, and then also that Ward Road project. Good things happening here.
Amen. Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo the comments about our finance department. Excellent job with that document and the work you do year-round. Also, I'd like to commend our city staff and public works department for the perfect timing of getting the street stoplights in at North Dean or Dean and North Cass Parkway, an area in my part of town and Mr. Johnson's part of town. I think it's one of the fastest growing parts of Raymore, with the warehouses soon to be opening full bore. I've noticed that coming home from work, the amount of cars coming out of there at 4:30, 5 o'clock, it's a straight line of cars, 30 or 40 cars. While in construction, that was somewhat of a dangerous intersection with a lot of unknowns, who stops, who doesn't stop, and all that. I think we had quite a few accidents down there. You could always hear the sirens. So perfect timing with that, and I think the project looks really good on that end of town. So congratulations with you on that. Lastly, I want to formally recognize the Kansas City Chiefs for winning the World Championship. I think it brings an economic boom to the metro and to Raymore. I was out shopping on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Raymore businesses were very busy, much like a Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Everything was sold off the shelves, and hopefully that brings us some tax revenue in from that, because people had some pretty good parties, and we could hear it for hours after the game. So congratulations to them. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll echo the comments of my council colleagues and reinforce their comments with respect to the budget and the audit presentation this year, which is a reoccurring event similar to our chiefs. I mean, just second is just status quo to Ms. Williams and team, and to the supporting cast, which is the remaining staff members who execute that budget and keep things in line to be within budget, to allow us to do the things that we do, like this evening, accelerate our capital budget and do a special bond for our parks to find funds in that aspect to get that done, and recognize to having a particular development willing and voluntarily annexed into our community while we are fighting a threat for a landfill. That's an amazing thing to have happen, to where a developer still wants to continue to invest in the community while we're continuing to fight that fight, because they're confident in the leadership that is carrying the mantle to make that happen. That doesn't go unnoticed. And again, I also reinforce the 20-plus years of certificate of recognition with our budget and how we present it and the transparency that it provides. It was, again, illustrated this year with the budget presentation and the methodology that our city manager and staff undertakes, which I believe you have started for next year's. You've begun to prepare for next year's budget in February already, to show the care and diligence that we take, staff takes in being responsible with the people's money. And that doesn't go unnoticed. So while we hear sometimes the continual comments of fiscal mismanagement of local governments, in my 7 years here on the council, and I definitely as a junior council member, aside from Mr. Baker, here on the council, I have not experienced that. We're not perfect, but we're darn sure better than the rest, and how we make things happen in this community. And that's a testament to everyone that's sitting at the table, that are home off work, that work for the city of Raymore, and this council, and the council that have served with me that are no longer on this council. I am proud to be a city council member here and to serve with this mayor and what everyone does to make this city what it is. As we continue to move forward, keep it up, keep doing the best, keep having the integrity and the fortitude to do what you do. You're outstanding at it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Forster.
Thank you. I would love to give Michelle kudos for reading that bill and getting through that. That was a lot, but it was an important thing to get done. So we appreciate that for you. Apparently it's just a brag on Fearborn tonight, because I would also like to say I'm super grateful for the above and beyond he went for the trails to get that taken care of for our citizens. Every time we've had a conversation with the citizens where we've had a pretty good turnout, everyone's talked about the trails, and so being able to help them with that and come through with that is huge. So thank you. And then last thing I want to say is I'm excited about the 3-acre lots, that it's not, that we get a little bit more land, and that's what people have been asking for. We've been doing a lot of different stuff, so having actually some acreage land development is great. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to say something about how proud I am to live in this metro region. You know, when you see other cities have something to celebrate, they light their town on fire, or they flip over cars, or they tear down street poles, or whatever. In Kansas City, we do some fireworks. If you look, there was a nice video I saw of maybe a helicopter or plane that showed all the fireworks over Kansas City, and then everybody went to bed because, you know, we've been there before. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. And my congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs as well on their third recent Super Bowl win. It's an amazing dynasty we've started here, that's for sure. Would be a lot brighter if we could get City Hall of Kansas City to talk to us about other matters. But, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully that line of communication will open up. Pardon me?
Should be on the football field. That's all I'm
I know, right? And in kudos to staff as well. You guys are awesome. Michelle, great job tonight for your first time at the microphone. Well coached there, Erica. And that's all I have this evening, but we do have a reason to go into executive session, so I would entertain a motion to do such that.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Abdelgawad.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss litigation and personnel matters.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to move into executive session. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes?
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Ingert, absent. Councilmember Forster?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
We will now move into